Welcome back, everyone. We have an amazing interviewee today for our Ask 5 and to discuss a lot of things that are happening in our industry. And his name is Jim Dague. Jim Dague. I know Miss Jimmy Dague. I've known him for quite a while here in Nevada. He is a 45-year veteran of the real estate industry and has done everything from owning brokerages to speaking. He speaks. He does a lot of stuff on the circuit speaking. And we're very excited to get his take on things and to have him answer the Ask 5.
Yeah, so join us today on the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
You've reached the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. And now your hosts, Jan O'Brien and Matt Emerson.
Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. This is episode 266. You can find all of those show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. Jan O'Brien, we are approaching the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yes, we are. And are you grateful for that?
Pardon me?
Are you grateful?
I am grateful that it's almost Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for that it's almost leftovers and turkey sandwich time. That's a very happy time in my year. So there you are. Easily entertained.
It's, you know what, to me, I love this part of the year. I love the approaching of Thanksgiving. I will say the whole Black Friday, like get yourself into the purchasing season certainly happens a lot earlier because, I don't know, last week was Black Friday. It's Friday. We got Black Friday going on today. But that's all good because maybe there's some good deals out there for everybody. But it is a great beginning of the season, so which is a great way to sort of end the year. And so let's bring in Jimmy and talk to him. Let him talk to us about his insights. There he is. The man, the myth, the legend.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. We've been wanting to have you on the podcast, so thank you so much. As we mentioned, when I mentioned in the beginning, I've been in the business here for 31 years. Have you always been in Vegas, or were you licensed elsewhere?
No, just here. Vegas is it for me.
So 45 years, senior faculty member, obviously doing tons of training. You've done it all. But you know what? One thing, I know we're going to ask you to tell a bit more, but I got to ask you, when you sent over your bio to us, I did not know that you had black belt. In what discipline or black belts?
Yeah, I actually, I've tested for black belt 14 times. Wow. And I failed 2 of my tests. I failed my 2nd degree black belt test, and I failed my 7th degree black belt test. I have a 4th degree in Shorin-Ryu and an 8th degree in Tang Soo Do. I'm testing for 2nd degree, and I failed on the basics. And then I tested for 7th degree. They call me Master Dague. What a joke. Master Dague, you failed your test. Work on your basics. So both times I failed my black belt test, it was on the basics. And they said, come back in a year. And I said, oh, good. That's not really what I was thinking, but that's a yes, Masters. I'm in the Martial Arts Masters Hall of Fame. I failed on the basics. Great.
Oh my gosh, I feel like there's a great analogy in that story. I bet maybe you use. Yeah. Hello, right? All right, well, why don't you give our...
Jan, before you go there, I have to ask a question. Did you guys actually ever work together in an office, a real estate office?
No, just...
Okay, so wait. This is the first person that I have come across in Vegas that Jan was not the broker for at some point.
Well, he would have been my broker.
I know, but it's crazy. It's like, hello, we've reached a milestone here.
We've known each other because he's just been in different positions like I was, and we probably dealt with things on the broker level. But the best thing was... earlier this year, I was a new faculty member. Jimmy and I got to teach together, which was really awesome. We did an orientation. I forget which course it was, but that was awesome. So that was our first experience of co-teaching, which hopefully we'll do that again. So, but this is where we would love to have you just share your story. If you can just kind of give us how did you get into the business and where you are now, and take us on a little journey of the Jimmy Dague real estate industry guy story.
Okay, you got it. Before I do that, I want to say, Matt, you don't work in the Las Vegas market, but anyone you talk to about Jan O'Brien, they, like you said, they either worked for her, they know her through her networking and her education and her teaching. And I have never, ever heard anything not one word bad about you, Jan. That's a testament right there. That's an excellent recommendation.
Thank you, but let me talk to everybody. One person. Go ahead.
I got to Vegas in 77, and I was married at the time. My now ex-wife came from Salt Lake City, and I came from Riverside. We thought, well, we'll move to Vegas. We'll be halfway in between the in-laws, and they can't come visit us all the time. But we were here about 6 months, and she said, let's buy a house. I said, okay. So we're driving around Las Vegas, and she said, I want to live here. It's a neighborhood called Twin Lakes. It's a very old neighborhood. Even in 78, it was an old neighborhood. I said, honey, why do you want to live here? She said, because of the trees. Because Las Vegas didn't have a lot of trees right then. So she picked the neighborhood because of the trees. And we called the real estate agent, and he wouldn't even meet with us because he asked us, well, how much do you want to spend? Now, Matt, I married well economically. My ex-wife was a trust fund baby. She had more money than she could. I never saw a dime of it, but we could have paid cash for anything they showed us. That wasn't their question. Could you pay cash? He said, how much do you want to spend? We hadn't seen any houses. We didn't know. So we called the second agent, and he said, well, I'll make an appointment with you, but you need to talk to a lender first. Well, we didn't need to talk to a lender first. So the third guy we called said, come on in, and I'll show you some houses. He's our guy. So he showed us 3 houses, and we said, well, we'll take this one. We like this one the best. We'll take this one. If we can't get that one, we'll take this one. We would have bought any one of those 3 houses. Turned out all 3 were sold. He showed us 3 houses that were in escrow. So we couldn't buy any of those. So we're driving around the neighborhood thinking everything sells in a heartbeat, and we find this for sale by owner. And we overpaid by 20% over the market. We didn't know what we were doing. And I said to my ex, I said, this is not happening to us again. I'm going to real estate school. I had no intention of getting in the business. 0 intention. I'd never sold anything. I'd never been in business for myself. I was a fry cook at Denny's, for goodness sake. It makes a perfect real estate agent, a fry cook at Denny's, right? And so we bought that house. We did really well with it. And we bought some more houses, and then things moved on. But when I got that first house, when I went to real estate school, one of my classmates said, well, talk to my husband's broker. I think he would hire you. And I went in there. I didn't know all you had to do was be breathing and you get hired. But, 79, 80 interest rates were 17, 18%. And so we worked through that. A lot of ownable carries, a lot of assumables. And so we've seen different parts of the market meltdowns. I've been through 3 really significant market meltdowns since 78. And I haven't seen any one of the 3 coming. So I'm not sure I should be on this podcast because I don't see things ahead of time.
Well.
Yeah, but
Go ahead, Jan.
You've seen it all, so that that things are always going to change, right? And so it's about being able to make those adjustments, right? Which is what I know you've always helped people with.
I have a poster in my living room that's an elephant standing on a beach ball, and it says balance is the key. And I think if you can balance the traditional fundamentals, that's why I feel the fundamentals with the new technology, then you have a chance. And I'm just saying you have a chance because you got to put the work in. But if you can't balance those fundamentals with the new stuff, I don't think you have a chance. I just don't. And I teach real estate school. I see these kids come in. The barrier to entry is it's not easy to get in. To get a license in Nevada, the test is hard. But I don't think they go in knowing what they're going to be expected to have to do. Because when I ask them, in fact, even when I ask real estate agents, what are you doing? What are you doing? I ask them all the time, what are you doing? The most frequent answer I get is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're supposed to know. That's just like that all the time. What are you doing? I don't know.
And that's what you currently are always managing a lot of different balls, right? You're still doing pre-licensing, right? Teaching CEs, you're on faculty. And are you managing an office right now still, or are you involved in that, or doing some coaching or training with wherever your license is hanging at the moment?
I am a corporate broker at Love Las Vegas, and
that's right. Right, with Ruthie, right?
Yeah, Ruthie and John, awesome. Right. And I went there for a couple reasons. John and Ruthie had the #1 RE/MAX office in the world for 5 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I had the #1 Century Twin office in the world for 3 years in a row. So Vegas was hot at one time. But even if Vegas was hot, everybody had the same opportunity. They had 5 years in a row. And so I really wanted to work with them. And they asked me to come over. And I said, you know what? This is a good timing for me. So I went there.
Good. So that's where you are now. And they still do a pretty good business that comes online, don't they? That's when I knew them.
They do. Ruthie is, she's probably about as skilled and as trained as anybody I know in the internet stuff. She started a training school for Hewlett Packard and IBM and Microsoft early on, like in the 60s, the late 60s. So she's been in that world for, I don't know anybody more knowledgeable than her. She just went to Katie Lance's conference. She went to Tom Ferry's Jason Pantana thing in Denver. She's always educating herself all the time. So she's really good to work with.
She's really on it. I mean, I got to know them because of the website and stuff that they developed that I thought was so hyper local for Las Vegas. I don't know if they're still doing that. The Agent Formula, Agent Formula, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So how many agents do you have in the office with you now?
There's about 85, 89, something like that. It's not a real big office, but I think when she got me in there, she expects it to grow. So we'll see.
All right. Well, there you go. You know you will. You attract all that. All right. So you just came back from the National Association of Realtors annual, whatever they call it, conference, or event and whatever it is. So can you just kind of jump in and tell us maybe what some takeaways that you got from that, or things that you went to or heard, and we'll dive in and let's chat about it. Obviously, we want to talk a little bit about what's going on with all these, the NAR plus, we'll call it NAR et al. Lawsuits, right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of people involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, let me just say that I don't go every year. I'm not an officer of the association, so when I go, I have to pay my own way, get my own room, travel there. The last one I went to was in Boston in 2018. The last time we had it in Las Vegas was 2008. So 15 years ago, we had it in Las Vegas, and I'm sure you know this. It was supposed to be in Las Vegas this year.
But the F1 messed it up, right?
That's right. They called NAR and said, you don't really want to be here. F1 is booked. The rooms are going to be ridiculous. Food lines are it's going to get a black eye. So NAR said, we'll move it to Anaheim. And so we picked up and moved to Anaheim. There were 12,000 people in attendance. I don't know what's normal, but I would say 70% of those were people that were paid for by their association. They're officers, and they got sent to go to governance meetings and stuff like that. So there's a lot of government functions that go on there. But there's also a bunch of educational sessions. But pretty much every session I went to, they opened with this Burnett lawsuit case. They talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And to me, the biggest takeaway is they don't really know what's going to happen yet.
Exactly.
They were in trials, in litigation for over 4 years. When it finally went to trial, it only lasted 2 weeks. The jury went out and came back within less than 3 hours with their verdict. Mm-hmm. So, it was pretty convincing that we have a problem. 1.8 billion was the judgment award against NAR. Treble damages are possible, so that could be 5.4 billion just in damages. So if you just took 5 billion, there's 1.5 million realtors. That's like what, $2,000 per realtor. If they had to give us an assessment, how many realtors would get out if you gave them a $2,000 assessment and said, hey, we have to pay this? But the truth is, it's still too soon to know because they're appealing it. It's going to be in court for a while, and I don't think it was a logical decision by the jury, but I don't know what all was said at the trial, but for them to deliberate less than 3 hours and come back with a guilty verdict, that doesn't look real good to me to NAR.
Do you feel like that could just be, again, I'm just speculating because we could obviously go in and read the transcripts and see all that stuff now, but I feel like sometimes there is a sense with the public that who we are as realtors, right? Yep. And we maybe deserve that because they just think that we're up. You know how we always do? I know that maybe I think I've seen it in your training too, because I do it, where, that Gallup poll for years that people, the trust factor, and of all these various, not industries, but professions, including attorneys and we're always like really in the low of that. So I'm just wondering if that, it's just a sense that I have. I haven't seen the evidence. I know that there's things that have to change, right? In the way we're disclosing things and we're saying things to the seller, or as buyer's agents, we can't go around and say our services are free, right? Whatever is all part of that. But do you get a sense of that like, that's like interesting that you make that comment that it's very quickly, we got enough evidence, you're guilty. Take that, right?
Well, you're right on Gallup and Harris Interactive and all those polls. I've been watching them since the late 70s, and we have never finished in the top half except for 1 year. 1 year we finished in the top half. We're always just above lawyers. They're the ones right below us. And I think it's partly due to the fact that the consumer, they look at the commissions we get, they don't know how they're divided, and they say, God, that's an awfully big paycheck for what you did for me. And so they feel like we're overpaid. But I'm sure you've heard this phrase, trust me, I'm a realtor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Okay, all right. But I think part of it, I just bought a new car, and I haven't bought a new car for 10 years. And frankly, I'm terrible at buying new cars. And I'm so bad at buying new cars. I feel unclean after I bought a new car. And I got the car I wanted. I had to drive to Ontario, California. So I got the car I wanted. I still felt bad about buying this car that I wanted. When people only buy a house once every 10 years, they don't know the process. They're terrible at it.
That's right.
And so when it's all done, they're not feeling real good about their competence and their performance because they don't know what happened. All they know is they got the keys or they got their house sold and they got a check, but they don't know what went on. And us delivering a value to them, we're worth what we're getting paid. You can't last 100 plus years in a free market economy unless your value is there. But they don't understand it. And that's why we finish so low on that ethics poll every time.
So now I think, so these are all the unanswered questions, right? So let's just sort of talk about that because it's going to take a minute, a couple years, maybe 1 to 1.5 to 2 years for these appeals. It's a little unnerving that as soon as there's a precedent case right now. It makes me think of, remember Jimmy, in the days of when I first got started here, 50% of the market was new homes. And right after that, there were so many construction defect lawsuits. Remember those?
Yeah.
New homes. And it was like attorneys descended on our marketplace, and it was like, hey, homeowners, do you feel that, you were, your builder didn't do a good job? Get into this class action suit. So that's what makes me think that's happening. Like the others settled, right? And the other one settled. This one, it goes for the plaintiffs. And then immediately after, there's already 2, I think, maybe more new suits, because it's that whole trend. Oh, we've got a precedent case. Let's go find another state and another jurisdiction and go find a bunch of other people and name them. That's concerning. Do you agree that we're going to keep seeing that? I mean,
yeah, they mentioned copycat lawsuits a couple times, and I think they said there's like a dozen already. So there's more than a couple. And one of the speakers, I don't remember which one it was, put a video up there of a law firm in another state saying, if you did a real estate transaction and you feel like your agent was overpaid or you got charged too much, call us right now and we'll represent you. So there's already attorneys out there advertising for this. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to happen. So it's like before it gets better, it could get worse, because the one I just saw that was in Houston, I saw an article yesterday, named an individual broker, and it named teams. In addition to what was interesting, it was the plaintiff is an LLC as a home builder, and I got to look into the details of all of that. And it's naming some of the big box companies again that hadn't been named already. So very intriguing. So some of the other questions are going to be. So you mentioned the one thing, big for me as educators, as trainers. I think that I just feel compelled that we've got to start working on how do we help our agents learn how to do better at showing their value. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've been saying, and I'd like to get your take on this, one of the things I've been saying is we need to learn to list the buyer. And what I mean by that is, for the most part, I want to say this, and I want to get your take and see what you think or the approach you're going to take with helping your agents or anybody that you're training. Listing agents, a lot of buyer's agents don't list because they think it's too complicated. That's been my experience in training people. Because when you list, you have to have the skills. You've got to be able to go in there and show your value and do all these things, and you might be competing more often. We don't do that as buyer's agents. Most people don't even use a buyer brokerage agreement. So I've been trying to coin that phrase, because I feel like agents have to get the mindset that you do need to show your value, and you need to show how you stand out and why they should choose to work with you, that they could know, like, and trust you, see the value, that they will actually want to participate in compensation if they have to. So what do you think we need to be doing, I guess, or what's your take on this? Because I know you're always thinking about how to educate your agents and the people that you train and coach.
Well, as much as I don't like the legislators in our business, I talked to a handful of agents at NAR that their states require a buyer broker contract. Mm. Some of them don't require it until you're actually going to write the offer. So you can start without one, but once you write an offer, you must have a buyer's listing agreement. And so if they ever got away with requiring that in Nevada, that would solve part of the problem, because until they make it mandatory, a lot of agents are just, you want to see a house? Let's go. You want to see a house? Let's go. It's the path of least resistance to actually get them to sign a buyer broker agreement. You've got to have some skills, and you've got to be able to communicate those skills. And I think every brokerage in Las Vegas is going to get really tuned into delivering classes on how to demonstrate and articulate your value proposition. But the thing that's wrong with this, if I go to buy a piece of furniture, I'm the buyer. Whatever price I pay for that furniture includes the cost of the staff and the building and the goods that are sold. The buyer has always paid enough to cover all these costs. Why are you singling us out and making it so terrible the way that we do this? I bought a car. I know I paid for the car salesman. I know I paid for the car dealership. I know I paid for the car. I paid whatever it cost to buy the car. I wanted a car. So it's really kind of a backwards suit, but I don't know if that's ever going to come out, because it does look like we get paid too much. Two people that I know and respect in the real estate industry in Las Vegas also have told me, I think we're overpaid.
Wow.
And these are people that are high up in real estate. For us in our own industry to think we're overpaid, man, that's hard a pill for me to swallow. But training. Okay. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I believe that the buyer's offer to purchase includes all the costs, including the commission so I think maybe the issue there I need to go and look and see how did the NAR and how did the defendants defend themselves? Because it's like, where did we do it to ourselves because we just weren't good at disclosing the way things work and how everybody's paid and all of this? I don't know. So we're going to have to deal with it. So are you familiar? I'm talking to people who say in other countries, it's so different, right? There really aren't buyer's agents. In other countries around the world, it's mostly you list a property and that's the person who gets paid. Do you think we could go to that? I mean, is that a possibility that we could just completely change and buyer's agents are irrelevant?
I don't think so. I think the cultures in other countries are such that, they want part of your commission. A lot of cultures that they expect you to get part of your commission. So you have to get paid or you can't give them part. Way, way lower fees. But a lot of places you don't get listings. Somebody gives you a listing, you try to market it yourself. So it's not like there's MLSs and there's not even license laws in a lot of countries. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we can, to me, that's comparing apples and oranges and they use that. They use that analogy. Here's what other countries do. Why do we have to charge this when they're charging that and they're getting away with it? Auctioneering fees and stuff like that. And they use that in their arguments. And it resonated with the jury apparently because it's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, we have to just get ready because we can't just turn a blind eye to it because it's certainly not going away. Not with the abundance of lawsuits that every time we turn around, there's another one.
Yeah.
It's the right time not to be a broker.
Yeah. Preach.
I don't know if you agree with that, but I do. Anyway, anything else come out of, did you see anything like from Lawrence Yun, the economist and all that, anything about where people think we're going on the market? We'll get away from the NAR Commission stuff. I
think they had a lot of roundtables this time, a lot of networking events, way, way more than I've seen in the past. Mm-hmm. And the educators, about half of them were on social media stuff. And I went to several of those, and those were excellent, actually. So there was a lot less training sessions this time. The last general session, we had Kurt Warner. Interesting story, American Underdog. There's a movie that they made about him and his life and his wife and his 7 kids and how he was a walk-on. He wasn't even drafted, and he won MVP in Super Bowl the first year and the second year. So interesting story. What he said, his message was, he sat on the bench in college for 4 years, hardly ever got to play, 4 years. And he said, he went to one of his teammates, he said, go ask the coaches, how come they don't put me in? How come they put me in? And the coaches said, because you're not the best guy in practice. And he realized, how I show up in practice is how they think I'm going to show up when the lights are on. And he talked about that as far as his family goes, his business goes, and when he was cut from one of the teams, he started bagging groceries and worked in a grocery store for $5.50 an hour. He said, very humbling experience. And then arena football came. But he said, I realized it's practice. And every top producer panel I've ever seen, all of them talk about scripts. And nobody wants to hear it. Oh, I don't like scripts. I'm not good at scripts. It's the fundamentals. I failed my black belt test on the fundamentals. That's scripts. How do you say what you say? And how much work have you done in practice before you get on the field? Really, that was the big takeaway I got from Kurt Warner. Interesting conversation. He's not a professional speaker. He wasn't polished like the other keynoters, but he was real. It was interesting.
That's cool. That's a cool story. Awesome. Was there anything about AI and the tech and stuff in real estate? Did anybody talk about that? I was just wondering. We were just talking about it because we've been doing a lot of digging into that and working with it ourselves, Matt and I.
There were a couple of people in the title of their talk said ChatGPT and what's it going to do to your business. And I went to those talks and nobody really talked about ChatGPT longer than 3 or 4 minutes.
Interesting.
They talked about social media platforms and how to dominate on particular ones. And I took some real good takeaways from that.
Okay.
But
maybe they just didn't have the right people because it's definitely can help. I mean, it's something people need to look at and learn. And we're doing some things on that because it's crazy, right, Matt? I mean, Matt was like I'm not going down that path. And now what's your take on that right now?
Yeah, no, that's really true. I mean, I was really very much against it. I think it's the end of the world is what's happening with ChatGPT. But you know what? It really is like anything else. It's how you use it, and and it really can be a time saver. There's a lot of really good benefits from it. So it's a matter of isolating that out and try to put the overlords taking over the world, the planet, on the back burner. But how you can use it in your business to save time and be more efficient. Well,
it is so smart. And my grandson's a second-year law school student, and he said last year ChatGPT became smart enough to pass the bar.
Yeah.
So that's pretty powerful.
And it's happening faster than we know because of all the millions of people that are pouring the data into it, and it's communicating with everyone. And it's very intriguing, but it does help marketing wise. It helps with so much. We're using it. It helps with.
It's just going to be so much more pleasant to read anything because it will be written better and it will be punctuated correctly and spelling will be better. So I don't know. Maybe there's an upside.
You used to teach English, Matt? Is that what you're using?
My wife's a school teacher, so I got that on my hang right here. Always. But yeah, so.
Yes, definitely, that's the case. All right, cool. So. All right, so and I agree, networking is also a big part going to these conventions, right? It's an opportunity to meet with people and build that. That's what I feel like. Did you find that you saw people you hadn't seen, you met new people, as far as?
I'm about as antisocial and introverted as you get. And I mean, every time I take Myers-Briggs, I'm off the charts introvert. So I don't talk to a whole lot of people, but I think if you're in any form of governance at the national level, that you get to network. Our local Las Vegas realtors had several people on the executive committee and on the board that were there, and they kind of chummed around together and they talked to each other. So they deepened their relationships a good deal, I think, by being there because they were in the same hearings. They heard the same stuff. Yeah. They had some common frame of reference, and I think that was valuable. It cost the association some money, but I think it was money well spent.
Okay. Last question on that is, did you go to the exhibitor hall that, like I always like to, I've only been, and as a matter of fact, I was at that Boston conference too. I got to speak a broker talk on business planning,
Oh, cool.
How to work with that in your agents and teams and so forth. But I was born in Boston, so it was great. I took my sisters with me and we went back and we enjoyed Boston. But I went to the exhibitor hall just to see, is there anything new? Was there anything, did you go, was there anything that piqued your interest? Is it the same kind of vendors?
It was big. The exhibitor hall was big. A lot of vendors. If you're going to do something on business planning, I only saw 2 sessions on the calendar on business planning.
Wow.
And so if you want to submit for next year in Boston, because that's where it's going to be next year.
Is it?
Yeah, submit your resume and submit your talk. You may actually get chosen because that's a topic.
Yeah, we should do
that. Yeah.
It's that was fun. That was a really detailed process to try to get all that in, but it was it's definitely something to look at. All right, let's jump into the Ask 5. I definitely want to get Jimmy's take on these 5 questions.
All right, first question. What's your best idea you have to really kind of cultivate and engage your SOI and your past clients?
Well, my best idea, I have 3 best ideas. Is that allowed?
That works.
Absolutely.
First, and I've heard this before, and I've heard it on some of the podcasts you guys have done, is identify who your A+ players are. Who has done business with you and sent you business? And if you haven't done that, then the rest of this stuff doesn't matter. You've got to identify your A+ players. I had a guy that worked for me and top producer in his office year after year after year, and calls me one day and said, Jim, this is Joel. Hey, Joel, my phone tells me, what's up, man? I need to meet with you. Well, Jan, if they have a question, they ask you on the phone. If they need to meet with you, they're leaving. So I meet with Joel, and he says, listen, I can't work with my ex-wife, Marcy. She's a broker, but she's got cancer. I've got to go help take care of her and her company. So he left. She recovered. Everything was good. But he called me about 6 months after he left, and he said, I want to buy you a margarita. I'm down. So we meet for margaritas, and he says, I think I've discovered the secret to happiness. Now, Joel was chronologically gifted. He was probably 75 or 76 at the time, and he moved slower than a snail. If there was a race, he would lose. But he buys me a margarita, so I'm sitting there and I said, Joel, I'm all ears. You got the secret to happiness? Dude, I'm ready. He said, I think the secret to happiness is to appreciate more what you do have and less for the things you don't have. So give me another margarita. I'll buy you one now, right? And so we're into our second margarita, and I said, Joel, I have a question for you. I never saw you move faster than a turtle. And you were the top producing agent year after year in an office of over 110 people. How did you do it? He said, well, that's a good question. He even talked slowly. That's a good question, Jim. That's why I asked it, Joel. What's the answer? He said, I only have 7 clients. He said, I've developed these 7 clients over my years in real estate. They all have money. They all like real estate. When I find a good deal, I call A. If he's all in, I call B. And he said, I never get to 7. And if I end on 4, I start the next time on 5. He said, my entire job in real estate is to find the deals that are worth pulling the trigger on. Wow. He said, when I find one, I sell it. He said, if your agents would spend more time with less people, they would make more money. And so if I have any takeaway from today as being on this podcast, that would be it. Spend more time with less people. Pick the people very carefully.
That's perfect.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my first of three. My second one is, if you have A+ players, find a way to give them a referral. You want to get referrals, you have to give, I mean, we know that. So how is there any way that I can refer them, any business, any educational, something that's going to, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, all that stuff. If I can find something that really has value to them, then I'm giving them something. Give before you ask, obviously. And then consistently send them evidence of your success. Gosh, you know what? This is the year of the listings. Here's the buyers I'm working with right now, we are working with in my office, and you send them a list. I'm working with 14 buyers. This guy wants this lady wants this couple wants this. If you show them that you have buyers, when they're ready to sell their house, you're the guy with the buyers, and you got to consistently send that to them. If I have something mantra for this next year, it's going to be the year of the listing. The year of the listing. It's because who has a listing is going to control more probably than ever.
Yeah.
So how do you get listings? Show them you have buyers. That would be my top three ideas for sphere of influence. They know you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
All right, the next one. So this is just an idea or ideas that are to generate business with people that you don't know. So my definition of sphere of influence or database is you pick up the phone and they know who you are.
Right.
So this question's about how do we help agents get more business so they can put it into their database?
At every educational session I went to, I was looking for that answer. That's what I was looking for. How do you generate business from people you don't know? And what I walked away with, one of the speakers talked about YouTube, and they all talked about all kinds of different things, TikTok and this and that. But I think my big takeaway is I'm going to get really good on YouTube, because he put some screenshots of some stuff on YouTube, and there's like no competition there. And it's very effective, and you just have to learn how to do it. And so there's a learning curve, but if you can learn how to do that, I mean, the definition of a business is an entity that thrives and prospers without you. Mm. That YouTube works when you're not working. You've got to find a way that's going to generate leads when you're not working, and YouTube is it. And that's my mission for December, January, and February. By Valentine's Day, I want to have a YouTube channel out there that's generating landing page inquiries, and I'm going to focus on one thing, because I know that the third question is what holds you back, and it's that shiny object syndrome. There's so many things that I get lost, and I know my agents come to me. They're looking for, give me step one. Okay, step one, look at property. Okay, I got that. Now, what's step two? Talk to people. If you're not looking at property, you have nothing to talk about. So step one, look at property. Don't worry about YouTube, and go look at some houses. If you're not looking at houses, you're not in real estate. Then we'll go to step three. We'll get to step three after 1 and 2. Tell me how many properties you saw last week. Tell me how many conversations you had. And that's where you balance the fundamentals with the more advanced techniques like YouTube and Facebook and your website and landing pages and all that stuff.
Basically, I'm hearing do the basics, do the fundamentals. So I got to ask, what holds you back? Are you saying, do you get the shiny object syndrome, or do you think agents do? I know agents do for sure. I know I used to, and I'm really aware of that now. Is that the big thing?
Yeah, it's challenging to focus for anyone in this industry, because you have all these people that are saying all these things, and it's hard not to listen to them, because some of them, they're doing a lot of business. But I wonder if you sat them down and asked them, how many properties did you actually see last week? Either they're so good at lead generation, they're such a good rainmaker, they're farming those leads out, and that's one way to success. I'm not arguing with that. But if they're actually doing personal production, they're looking at a lot of houses, and they're talking to a lot of people. I remember Tim Smith from Call a Banker. Tom Ferry had him on the stage one time, and he just talked about the conversations he has with people, and he just talks to people all the time. Who do you know that wants to sell a house? Well, I don't know anybody. Oh, come on, there's got to be somebody at your church. You know somebody. And he would probe and probe and probe. He did ask him like 3 or 4 times. And well, you know what? Jan O'Brien, her kids just went off to college. Maybe she's thinking. So Jan, Matt Emerson called me. He told me to call you, and so now I have an entry. But you got to look at property and talk to people. That's the fundamentals. And then you can look at YouTube or Facebook or your website or whatever. But you got to do the first 2 first.
Solid advice.
Exactly. What inspires you? I mean, are there books or podcasts, or where do you go to get your inspiration? And then, how does that inspire you? Well,
I mean, so many things. I did look at the podcasts that were mashups, those last 5. Excellent. In fact, some of the book recommendations that I've read, I need to reread Atomic Habits, Jim Collins. I just listened to some Zig Ziglar. But I think really, if I had to name one thing that inspired me, it would be Brian Buffini. Yeah. Brian Buffini, I love Brian Buffini. If I liked him anymore, it'd be inappropriate. I love Brian Buffini. Out of the last 20 years, I've probably been to 16 of his conferences in San Diego. And every year I spend the money and I go down there. Nobody pays my way. And I think, is it going to be worth it this year? Is he going to blow me away? Every year I just get blown away by this guy. The guests he brings on, his message, he's got such integrity and such wholeness in his approach to life, spiritual, family, business, financial, personal. He just has it down. I love Tom Ferry. Tom Ferry's got a very holistic view. Tom Ferry inspires the heck out of me. But if I had to choose one over the other, it would be, and I went to Tom Ferry this year. I went to Brian Buffini this year. Interestingly, Tom Ferry talked about, he moved from the beach area in Southern California to Dallas or Houston.
Yeah.
I think it's Dallas, Dallas. And so he's on the stage and he talks about, when we moved to Dallas, he said, the building I live in, I'm the poorest guy in the building. He's got a lot of money. For him to be the poorest guy, he's surrounding himself with people that are more wealthy than he is. So he's taken those advice pieces that we've been given, hang around more successful people and you be more successful, hang around wealthy people. He's the poorest guy in his building. Wow. So I like Tom Ferry a lot. I like Tony Robbins. In fact, if I give somebody a recommendation of a book, I would say, get Tony Robbins' book called Life Force. Go to lifeforce.com. They'll charge you $9.99 for shipping. It is an amazing, amazing book. The reviews on it are very polarized. Either people loved it to death or they hated it. It's just a commercial for all the companies he's invested in. But it talks about medicine and the science of not just repairing us, not just replacing with a new part, but regenerating, the regenerative idea of medicine. Mind-blowing book. And the very first quote of the book, a healthy man has 1,000 wishes. A sick man has but one. And I just had an appendectomy 2 weeks ago. And that was very telling to me. You know what? I just want to get better. So, but Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, you guys have your 5 questions. If you haven't read any of Tim Ferriss's work, the 4-Hour Work Week, you remember Mike West, Jan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
When Mike West and I were partners, he said the most impacting book he ever read in business was The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And so I got the book and I read the book. It was good. But Tools of Titans and Tribe of Mentors, Tim Ferriss talks about questions he asked these people, and they're uber performers. And the first question, he has 11 questions that he asked them. And the first question, what is the book or books you've given most as a gift and why? Or what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life? So he says, I start with that question because everybody has some favorite books. And this Tribe of Mentors got 11 questions. It's worth looking at.
Okay. See, every time we have somebody, I write down another thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Tribe of Mentors. I didn't even know Tim did a new book. Cool. I'm writing it down.
One of the exhibits, NAR had a very, very, very good booth. I mean, they were given coffee and refreshments and Boston cream clam chowder or whatever. I mean, they had a really impressive booth, but they had some educational sessions. And one of them was the librarians. And they talked for about 20 minutes about the NAR library and how, I have Hoopla and Libby on my phone. And so I download books that I can listen to in my car. Well, you can download the NAR library too, and they've got a ton of resources. And that was interesting to me because I specifically picked that educational session to go to find out how to put the NAR library on my phone. Because you can have many libraries. What's that?
I said I didn't even know they had that. That's cool.
I didn't either.
Great tidbit. Cool. All right, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And then where are we, Matt? Last question. So what's your best advice for agents to thrive now and into the future, with especially given all the things that we've just sort of talked about today and what could change in our industry? What's your best advice for agents to thrive besides getting back to the basics?
Right.
And let's go a little more with that, because I agree with basics for sure.
Well, I think I have a small tattoo on one arm. I think I'm going to get on my other arm a tattoo that says "Year of the Listing," because what you focus on expands. And I think for me to start thinking, okay, how do I get more listings by looking at property and talking to people? How does that get me more listings? I need to send them that letter that says we are working with I might not have any buyers myself, but Matt's got 3 and Jan's got 2 and Mary Sue's got 4, and I make a list of those and I start sending that out to my A+ clients. But I'm listening to your episode 261. And that's on question 5, the best advice. Ludi Tanios, schedule your priorities. Fundamental. And then she really went into social media. Tina King, Fred Nassab, schedule your priorities. Oh, you said not fundamentals. Let's see. Barry Aldridge says, there's no time to take your foot off the gas. Mark Hughes talked about branding. Bob Brunswick, look at it like a business. And when I ask agent to define business, they never say an entity that thrives and prospers without you. But that's the definition of a business, an entity that thrives and prospers without you. How do I set my business up so that when I'm not working, the leads are still coming in? And so that's the advice I would give. Extreme focus, the year of the listing, pick a platform. I don't care whether it's Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, but pick one and go through the learning curve on that one platform. Because one of the trainers threw up a statistic. They said more than 50% of business now is coming from social media. Mm-hmm. And we know in the years past, it's come from referrals. 40% has come from referrals. And they're saying social media has outpaced referrals. Now, I haven't seen those numbers yet. NAR releases the buyer and seller profile at the NAR conference. So I'll download it tomorrow or the next day and take a look at it. But I think if you're not doing the work and learning social media and picking a platform and really doing that, I really think you're going to get left out.
Wow.
Prospering the future, social media, pick one. I'm going to use YouTube because when I saw the screenshots this guy put up, I mean, there is no competition on YouTube at all.
Wow. So I love that. So year of the listing, couldn't agree more. Pick one platform and don't try to be on all of them, right?
Right.
Pick one and really own it. And then
once you get that one down, if you get that one down, then you can expand to another platform.
Right.
But get one first.
And I know the key to that is just because of our personal experience in my business this year is you have to create a lot of content. You can't just do it every once in a while. The key for social is to put good content up daily, really.
Well, and
YouTube could be weekly or a couple times a month, but I don't know.
The content has to market to their pain. I'm divorced, and I put that in my accusation audit that we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And I'm not proud of that fact, but I can tell you, going through a divorce, most real estate agents have probably been there at least once. Most, not all, but most have been there. And what do you do with your property in a divorce? And so that's a specific message to a specific level of people. And every year there's people getting divorced in every state and every city. And so if you start with that, which is where I'm going to start in Las Vegas, getting divorced in Las Vegas, what do you do with the property? I'm just going to do that message first. And when I get that content down, then I'll go to whatever number two is. And basically market to their pain. What is the challenge for a first-time buyer? Down payment assistance. There's 2,000 down payment assistance programs out there. Buyers don't know about that.
Oh my gosh, awesome. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing all that.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'll tell you, just everyone listening, we talked about AI earlier. Jan and I have been doing a lot of playing around with that, and talk about a tool that will help you with your path on creating posts, what to post, how to post it. I mean, everything about the description, the subjects, everything. With your online presence, with creating content, can be really greatly helped as far as efficiency goes, and just really the value of the message through AI. And Jan and I, like I said, we've been playing around with this a lot, and we're going to be giving some more information and maybe have a couple workshops coming up on AI, because there's a lot of really great resources for it. If you don't know how to go in and create your plan for content creation, it can literally create your plan, right, Jan? Amazing.
Absolutely. Then you can go down and create, if you haven't played with it, go get it, Jimmy, because if you're going to go down that path with YouTube, you could throw that in. You have to kind of teach. In fact, you know what? We should send them our
I will do that.
Send them our guide that we created, okay, with the prompts. It's all about the prompts. You got to put the prompts in that say who you are and what you want, and it'll give you outlines, and then you can do your own writing to it. But it's like having like a muse. It's like a digital muse, okay?
Totally. It's
awesome. All right, cool. Any last words, Mr. Dague? I love leaving on the how to thrive. I'm thinking that's wonderful. I so agree with you. Sellers are going to start. Well, you just mentioned the sellers that have to sell. That's the ones that have been selling, and I call it the couple Ds, right? Divorce, death, probate. Those are areas to specialize in. People are going to list their home when the market shifts and the rates come down, whether that's going to be sometime next year with inflation and whatnot. And that's why I feel like we've got to be poised and ready to go. So you got to start that now. You got to start laying that foundation now. Year of the listing. It's kind of like, where are we coming into? What's the Chinese zodiac for next year? Haven't we been year of the dragon this year? I don't know what it is next year.
I think we're dragon this year. Yeah.
All right. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Matt, last piece of advice. Go watch the Matt, you have mashups from year 1, year 2, and year 3. Yeah. Those mashups are inspiring, and they're short. One of them was like 19 minutes. But if you want to really get inspired, I would say go to Wandering But Not Lost podcast and look at those mashups, because there's some very, very good ideas and inspiration.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. You've been a pleasure to have on the show today, Jim, and it really is. And you can get all your information. You want more information about Jim? You want to know how you can get a hold of him? Go over to our show notes at WBNLpodcast.com. This has been episode 266. All that information is going to be over there. Little housekeeping. We're going to be off next week. Jan and I are going to take a little week off for the Thanksgiving holidays, so we're not going to be there, but we'll be back the week right after that, 1st of December. Actually, it's probably still November. Thanksgiving's early this week, or this year. But anyway, we'll be back. And as always, everyone, get up, get out, live the life you've dreamed, people. Be grateful and be forever wandering, but not lost.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So we'll do that, and then we will have you. I loved your bio. For God's sakes, I'm like, what a very much. You say what you want to say with all of that, because it's very inspiring. Look, things can happen to you, and then you just keep carrying on, right?
Yeah.